Wave of hate, harassment against Jewish and Muslim Americans surges since Hamas attacks. Recent anti-Semitic sentiment in the U.S. sparks fear it will worsen as the war between Israel and Hamas heats up. Muslim and Jewish civil rights groups say they've seen large increases in reports of harassment, bias and sometimes physical assaults against members of their communities since the October 7 Hamas attacks. The Anti-Defamation League and the Council on American-Islamic Relations saw increases in reported instances, many involving violence or threats against protesters at rallies in support of Israel or in support of Palestinians over the last 2 weeks as war broke out between Israel and Hamas. Other attacks and harassment reported by the groups were directed at random Muslim or Jewish people in public. A spokesperson for the Council on American-Islamic Relations said Wednesday that the organization's chapters in national office had received 774 reports of bias-related acts between October 7 and October 24. The national headquarters had 110 direct reports during that period, compared to 63 for all of August. The Council's leaders believe it's the largest wave of complaints since December 2015. When then-presidential candidate Donald Trump declared his intent to ban Muslim immigration to the U.S. in the wake of the San Bernardino mass shooting that left 14 people dead. People are also reading. Lincoln Mall will get 4 new tenants. Here's what's coming. Waverly class assignment spurs parent complaints. Plan for protest. Defensive back Callan Barta decommits from Nebraska sound waves. What others are saying about Nebraska volleyball's win versus Wisconsin. Amy Just. Nebraska football has a full plate this weekend, but still supporting volleyball team. Body in Norfolk chimney identified. Tenant had reported hearing, "Help me, Jesus." a month ago. Lincoln business owner unloading some shops amid health issues. Interstate 80 west of Lincoln reopens after suspected shooting. Amy Just. Game of the century between Nebraska, Wisconsin doesn't just meet hype. It exceeded it. Wisconsin volleyball coach Kelly Sheffield gives his take on slugfest match versus Nebraska. Number 2 Nebraska volleyball defeats number 1 Wisconsin. Game recap. Early Bird Restaurant opening new brunch location in Lincoln early next year. Nebraska AG targets sale of Delta-8 in series of consumer protection suits. Amy Just. Nebraska's poise intense match. And other takeaways from epic win. 1 person dead. Shot by Seward County deputies after Interstate 80 chase. The reported acts since October 7 include an Illinois landlord fatally stabbing a 6-year-old Muslim boy and wounding the boy's mother, police say, as well as the arrest of a Michigan man after police say he asked people in a social media post to join him in hunting Palestinians. Public officials should do everything in their power to keep the wave of hate sweeping the nation right now from spiraling out of control, said Corey Saylor, Research and Advocacy Director of the Council on American-Islamic Relations. Time equals 400 Ms. Greater than nation and world war between Israel and Hamas raises fears about rising U.S. hostility. By Holly Raymer. Associated Press. Listen now and subscribe. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. RSS feed. Omni Studio. Saylor noted that former President George W. Bush's visit to a mosque after the 9/11 attacks had a calming effect on the backlash felt in Muslim communities. He called on President Joe Biden to visit with Americans who lost family members in Gaza. The Anti-Defamation League's Center on Extremism reported in a statement Wednesday that the organization recorded at least 312 reports of anti-Semitic acts between October 7 and October 23, compared to 64 recorded during the same time period in 2022. Those reports included graffiti, slurs or anonymous postings, as well as physical violence such as a woman being punched in the face in New York by an attacker who the league said, "You are Jewish." The 312 reports included 109 anti-Israel sentiments spoken or proclaimed at rallies. The Anti-Defamation League's Center on Extremism found to be explicit or strong implicit support for Hamas and or violence against Jews in Israel, according to the statement. Time equals 400 Ms. Greater than protesters at several of the rallies used the slogan, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." which the Anti-Defamation League and other Jewish groups have criticized as a call to dismantle the State of Israel. Many Palestinian activists say they are not calling for the destruction of Israel, but for freedom of movement and equal rights and protections for Palestinians throughout the land. Nation and world. The Israel-Hamas war has roiled U.S. campuses. Students on each side say colleges aren't doing enough. Jocelyn Gecker, Chrissy Thompson and Michael Melia, Associated Press. The Anti-Defamation League called for strong responses to anti-Semitic posts, rhetoric and acts. The organization said violent messages that mention Jews on platforms like Telegram Messenger have increased even more than reports of in-person instances. It is incumbent on all leaders, from political leaders to CEOs to university presidents, to forcefully and unequivocally condemn antisemitism and terrorism. Jonathan Greenblatt, Anti-Defamation League CEO, wrote in the statement. Jewish civil rights organizations in the United Kingdom, France and other countries across Europe, Latin America, North Africa and elsewhere have also tracked increases in anti-Semitic acts in the past few weeks compared to 2022. League officials said London police had received 218 reports of anti-Semitic crimes between October 1 and October 18, which was 13 times greater than the numbers reported in 2022. This morning's top headlines: mass shooting in Maine, auto workers strike. Update: National APA suspect in the fatal shooting of 18 in Maine is still at large. Residents are sheltering in place by David Sharp, Robert Bumstead, Holly Raymer and Michael Balsamo. Associated Press updated 2 minutes ago. 0 time equals 400 ms. Greater than. Authorities have launched a multi-state search on land and water for a U.S. Army reservist who they say fatally shot 18 people at a bowling alley and a bar in Maine. The shootings in the city of Lewiston on Wednesday night sent panicked patrons scrambling under tables and behind bowling pins. Police identified the suspect as 40-year-old Robert Card. He was still at large Thursday afternoon, sparking a massive search and prompting schools and businesses to shut down and residents to shelter in place. A U.S. official told the Associated Press that Card was taken by police for a mental evaluation in July after he was acting erratically during training. The official was not authorized to publicly discuss information and spoke on condition of anonymity. National APA list of mass killings in the United States since January by the Associated Press updated 12 minutes ago. 0 The latest mass killing in the United States happened Wednesday in Lewiston, Maine. A man opened fire at a bowling alley and a restaurant, killing at least 18 people and injuring at least 13. A 40-year-old man has been identified as a person of interest. He is a firearms instructor trained by the military and was recently committed to a mental health facility. Police were still searching for him Thursday. The shooting was the country's 36th mass killing this year. So far this year, the nation has witnessed the second highest number on record of mass killings and deaths to this point in a single year. Only 2019 had more mass killings. Business. AP auto workers reach a deal with Ford, a breakthrough toward ending strikes against Detroit automakers by Tom Krischer. AP Auto writer updated 7 hours ago. 0 The United Auto Workers Union says it has reached a tentative contract agreement with Ford that could be a breakthrough to end the nearly 6-week-old strikes against Detroit automakers. The 4-year deal still has to be approved by 57,000 union members at the company. It could bring a close to the union's series of strikes at targeted factories run by Ford, General Motors and Jeep maker Stellantis. The Ford deal could set the pattern for agreements with the other two automakers, although no other agreements were announced Wednesday. National AP time equals 400 ms. Greater than. Federal prosecutors urge judge to reinstate Trump gag order, citing comments about ex-chief of staff by Eric Tucker. Associated Press updated 12 minutes ago. 0 Federal prosecutors are urging a judge to reinstate a gag order on Donald Trump. They're citing recent comments by the former president about his ex-chief of staff that they say represented an attempt to influence and intimidate a foreseeable witness. U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan last week temporarily lifted her order barring Trump from making inflammatory comments about prosecutors, court staff and potential witnesses. In a motion Wednesday, Special Counsel Jack Smith's team encouraged Chutkan to put the restrictions back in place. Prosecutors cited in part statements by Trump about his former chief of staff, Mark Meadows. ABC News reported Tuesday that Meadows has testified before a grand jury after receiving immunity from prosecution. National AP Israeli troops briefly raid northern Gaza to prepare for an expected full-scale incursion by Najib Jobain, Kareem Chehayeb and Amy Teibel. Associated Press updated 2 hours ago. Israeli troops and tanks launched an hours-long ground raid into northern Gaza overnight. The military said troops struck several militant targets in Thursday's raid in order to prepare the battlefield ahead of a widely expected ground invasion. The raid came after the UN warned it is on the verge of running out of fuel in the Gaza Strip, forcing it to sharply curtail relief efforts in the besieged territory. Hospitals in Gaza are struggling to treat masses of wounded with dwindling resources. The war, sparked by Hamas' bloody incursion into southern Israel on October 7, is already the deadliest of 5 fought between Israel and Hamas in the last 15 years. National upon increase in harassment against Jewish and Muslim Americans has been reported since Hamas attacks. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than by Claudia Lauer. Associated Press updated 4 hours ago. Muslim and Jewish civil rights groups say they've seen large increases in reports of harassment against members of their communities since the October 7 Hamas attacks. Many reports have involved violence or threats against protesters at rallies in support of Israel or in support of Palestinians over the last 2 weeks. Other reported attacks and harassment have been directed at random Muslim or Jewish people in public. A spokesperson for the Council on American-Islamic Relations says the organization has received 774 reports of bias-related acts since October 7. The Anti-Defamation League's Center on Extremism reports that at least 312 anti-Semitic acts were recorded between October 7 and October 23. Government politics as world royals, U.S. and China seek to ease strained ties and prepare for possible Biden-Xi summit by Didi Tang and Matthew Lee. Associated Press 14 hours ago. In the midst of 2 potentially world-changing conflicts, the U.S. is hoping to find at least a small measure of common ground with China as China's top diplomat visits Washington this week. In meetings that begin Thursday, top Biden administration officials, including possibly the president himself, will press Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi on the importance of China stepping up its role on the world stage if it wants to be considered a major international player. The U.S. officials are expected to urge China to play a constructive role in both the Israel-Hamas and Russia-Ukraine wars. The meetings could set the stage for a summit between President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping next month. Time equals 400 Ms. greater than nation and world. Apathy's stunning turn to monster Pacific hurricane kills at least 27 in Acapulco by Mark Stevenson. Associated Press 2 hours ago. Otis' stunning transformation into a monster hurricane killed at least 27 people as it devastated Acapulco, officials say. President Andrés Manuel López Obrador says at least 4 people remain missing. He says the hurricane toppled every power line pole in the zone where it hit on Wednesday, leaving much of the city of 1 million without electricity. Otis turned from mild to monster in record time, and scientists are struggling to figure out how and why they didn't see it coming. With tens of thousands of residents in damaged homes without power, the toll could rise, but López Obrador sounds optimistic about losses remaining where they are. National AP fire. Other ravages jeopardize California's prized forests by Brian Melly. Associated Press updated 2 hours ago. Forest in California may be disappearing. Scientists say repeated fires, drought and beetle infestations are altering the Sierra Nevada. Despite relatively mild wildfire seasons this year and last, California has seen 12 of its largest 20 wildfires, including the top 8 in the previous 5 years. Efforts are underway by the state and federal government to cut down smaller trees and set fires under ideal conditions to clear out undergrowth. But some environmentalists are poised to challenge projects they say are really logging plans. 0 Comments. Love 0. Funny 0 Wow 0 Sad 0 Angry 0 Tags DCC Wire Lee National. Be the first to know. Get local news delivered to your inbox. Sign up. I understand and agree that registration on or use of this site constitutes agreement to its user agreement and privacy policy.